Ben 10 is a classic cartoon and one of the most loved ones. It has a total of 4 seasons and 52 episodes, and in this video, we're going to talk about it and explain it in detail from start to finish. So, let's get right into it.
Now he's got superpowers, he's no ordinary kid, he's Ben 10.
Ben 10 started with Azimuth on Galvan Prime Planet with his girlfriend Zenith. One night, they were hanging out and he noticed that the solar system is following continuously, which inspired him to create a sword, and that was the reason for Zenith breaking up with him, because he was so caught up in his work. In the war between planets, a knight stole the sword, which eventually destroyed his planet, so Azimuth got it back and took it to Earth during the Medieval Ages war against aliens. He gave it to George, an immortal knight, and he defeated the aliens using the sword, and that was the creation of the Forever Knight who protected the Earth from aliens. Azimuth created the Omnitrix to bring peace and union and apologize for what he did on the isolated planet Xenon by collecting all the aliens' DNA in space and putting it inside the green stuff. Now let's go back to Earth. In the 70s, an organization was created to help protect the Earth from aliens under George Washington's presidency, until the Plumbers Foundation took it over. In 1962, a pilot in the Air Force Army named Max Tennyson attacked a flying ship only to discover that it was actually an alien spaceship, which takes the form of a female human being. After saving the female alien, aka Verdona, who was chased by another alien, they fell in love. This girl was Ben and Gwen's grandmother, and this explains where Gwen got her powers from. He then met one of the plumbers and decided to become one of them and leave for space. And that was where he met Xylene and dated her for a while after handing her Vilgax the bad guy. Azimuth was finally done with the Omnitrix and asked Xylene to give it to the greatest plumber in the galaxy, Max Tennyson. But while transporting the Omnitrix, she was attacked by Vilgax after he ran away to get the watch. So she decided to send it to Earth. But instead of Max finding it, his grandson Ben did, because Max got older and retired from the plumbers. So while he was on a road trip across the country with Ben and Gwen, his granddaughter, the Omnitrix watch got stuck into Ben's hand while he was wandering in the forest on their first day of camping. And it's here where things start to get real. The very first alien he transformed into was Heat Blast. Vilgax got the watch's signals and sent soldiers after him. Using Diamond Head, Ben defeated the goons. See, because at that time, Vilgax had severe injuries, hence why he didn't show up. And from then on, Max and his grandkids fought aliens and villains the whole summer. They then rented a boat to go swimming and discovered that there was a kraken in the lake, so Ben had to fight it, only to realize that Jonah the fisherman stole the kraken's eggs, and that's why it was attacking them. They then headed to visit Aunt Vera at the retirement home and discovered that they are aliens and that they've been kidnapping the locals and taking their shapes, but in the end, they saved everyone. Vilgax kept trying to get the watch, so he sent 3 soldiers, and after a fight with Ben, one of the 3 aliens turned out to be Tetrax Shard. This guy was actually good and looked kinda like Diamond Head, and he actually decided to help Ben get rid of the other soldiers and became Ben's friend. Ben met Kevin for the first time when he helped him get the money out of an arcade game after he argued with his grandpa. Kevin used his absorption powers to steal, and when Ben confronted him, Kevin absorbed the Omnitrix's power accidentally and turned into an alien, but Ben managed to defeat him. Ben got in a fight with some criminals that led to his grandpa getting injured and going to the hospital. Vilgax also hired some criminals to get the Omnitrix, and while the soldiers were fighting with Ben, Vilgax communicated with Ben for the first time and told him that there is no escaping, even after he defeated his men. Hex, another villain, from whom Gwen got a charm after Ben defeated him, the amulet made her super lucky, and she named herself Lucky Girl. Hex tried to get the charm back, but Ben defeated him again, and Gwen let go of the charm's magic. Then we see Forever Knights for the first time, when Ben transformed into gray matter for the first time, couldn't go back to his human form, and was then kidnapped by a stranger who's obsessed with space. This stranger gave Ben to the Forever Knights, but Gwen and Max saved him. Now, we get to know Clancy. He's a man who was able to control insects, and he wanted to get revenge on the town's mayor because he wanted to destroy the building where he was living. Vilgax showed up after his wounds got healed and attacked Ben because, again, he wanted to get the Omnitrix. He kidnapped Ben and tried to remove the watch, however, he couldn't. Although Max warned Ben not to attack Vilgax, he went to Mount Rushmore to get some secret weapons from an old secret base that he used in the past to save Ben. In the meantime, Vilgax kept trying to remove the Omnitrix until Max debarked into the spaceship using his van, fought Vilgax, defeated him, destroyed the spaceship and Vilgax, and saved Ben. After defeating Vilgax, Max revealed all of his secret past to Ben and Gwen and that he was one of the Plumbers, which was an organization that deals with strange phenomenon on Earth. The kids also met Max's partner, Phil Billings, who was still working at the organization. Phil was a scammer and used a device that brought aliens from another dimension, hunted them, and then sold them for money. Next, a giant creature named Great One arrived on Earth and wanted to devour it, but Ben was still able to defeat it in the end. After that, crimes increased and they were committed by aliens that looked like Ben's, only to discover that it was actually Kevin trying to set him up with the police. They get into a fight on the Golden Gate Bridge that ended with Ben defeating Kevin, but not finishing him. Because of anger, Kevin turned into a freak of all the aliens and couldn't return to his human form. They fought again, but Kevin ended up losing and falling from the bridge. In episode 4 of the second season, we saw them in a different dimension where Gwen had the Omnitrix, but we're gonna talk about that later. Kevin came back to get revenge on them, and while fighting again, they get kidnapped by aliens to be used in ring fights. The two had to collaborate with each other to escape the spaceship and kill its leader while chained together. In the end, and while leaving the spaceship, Kevin tricked Ben and tried to kill him, but he escaped, left him on the spaceship, and went back to Earth. Ben and Gwen continued their adventures across the country while fighting villains over and over. Ben also managed to get some new aliens. In one of the adventures, they arrived at a camp and found a twin who was the last one in camp. Ben fought living plants and saved all the kids that disappeared, and it was there when Ben transformed into Wildvine for the first time. The Forever Knights also came back to get an antique mask, by which they can get to the Maya's strongest sword. Hex came back after getting freed by Charmcaster just to get revenge on Gwen and Ben. At the same time, Gwen got a bracelet from a witchcraft museum that made her once again lucky girl. The bracelet had the charms of Beezle on it. Hex wanted revenge and to get his charms and power back, but after a fight with Charmcaster, she tricked him and wanted to get all the power to herself. Gwen managed to defeat her and destroyed the charms, of which one was clearly still working. Now, we get to the part where Ghost Freak gets out of the watch. Ben was starting to have these weird and terrifying nightmares until Ghost Freak left the Omnitrix and tried to possess Ben's body and take over the world. He even threatened Ben by possessing Gwen and trying to throw her off the building. After a long fight, Ben figured out that the sun is the only way to defeat Ghost Freak and finished him. Animo got his hands on a piece of the Omnitrix after Ben messed with it and broke it. This twisted man used it to create alien-looking animals, and he even turned Max into a sticky worm. Kevin and Vilgax then decided to stand together against Ben after Kevin found Vilgax frozen in space. So together they fought Ben, and Max used the null void projector to send the two into the void. But Ben ended up getting sucked in with them as well. After a long, intense fight in the void, and after getting followed by Gwen who tried to save Ben, Gwen had to make the choice between his cousin and the watch, and he almost gave it up. But Gwen tricked them and changed the watch with an empty capsule. They then go out of the void, leaving Vilgax and Kevin there. Kevin ended up in the void's prison as an angry freak. He made a friend there who helped him control his emotions, and he really did learn how to start going back to his human form. The other prisoner had a plan to escape the prison through a tunnel underground. Kevin ran away, but unfortunately, the other prisoner didn't make it and was killed by the guards. Now we get to the third season. Max, Ben, and Gwen are still together, and we get introduced to Sublimino, the clown who hypnotized Ben and made him steal from banks. Charmcaster came back and exchanged bodies with Gwen accidentally, which led to Gwen and Charmcaster's body going to prison, but in the end, everything went back to normal and the real Charmcaster ended up in prison. In the next adventure,